Hi everyone, this is my how-to on a pink spotlight eye. So let's just start by brushing our brows through with a spoolie. Next I'm going to be filling my brows in with MAC Cosmetics Deep Dark Brunette Fluid Line Brow Gel and their 266 angled brush. Just do what you like to do with your brows. I go for a slightly more angled brow. I know some people love a fluffy brow. Just do whatever you're comfortable with. And make sure you just go back in and brush it back through with that spoolie. Next up, I'm using the P. Louise Base Pro in shade number 2, the Rumour, with MAC Cosmetics 242 brush. So I'm going to be using this to carve out my brow. I'm also going to be putting it all over my eyelid and patting it in to create the base for my eyeshadow. I blend it out quite far and up onto the side of my nose, just to make sure that I've got all the space covered for when I go in with my shadows. You don't necessarily have to do this bit. Again, I like the tail of my brow quite sharp, so I just go in and I carve out the top of my brow. Next up, I'm taking my MAC Cosmetics 224 brush with the Stacey Marie Carnival palette with the shade Foolish, and I'm just blending that just in and above my crease. Next, I'm using a Spectrum B06 brush, and I'm using that with the Funky shade in the Stacey Marie palette. I'm using this right into my crease, and I want to blend that up into the Foolish shade that I just used. I do go back in with my 224 brush just to make sure I've got a seamless blend. So now I want to really deepen out that crease. I'm going to use my MAC Cosmetics 221 brush with the shade Wasted and go right into that crease and blend it through. This is probably one of my favourite brushes ever. It just does such a good job at blending, and it's so small and precise as well. It's just ideal for this kind of look. So we don't want to lose that seamless blend that we've just done. So we're going to go back in with the brushes and the eyeshadows that we've already used, just blend it back through, re-put the colour back in, and just to keep that seamless look. I personally like a more intense cut crease, so I'm just going to go in with MAC Cosmetics 214 Smudger brush with Liquor from the palette and just intensify that crease. Now I'm just going to go in with MAC Cosmetics 219 brush with that shade Liquor again. I'm going to intensify the crease, and I'm going to also intensify the corners because that's going to create the shape we want. And now back in with MAC's 221 brush just to blend it out. Now it's just time to cut the crease. So we're going to be using the P. Louise Base Pro with MAC Cosmetics 242 brush that we used earlier. Now you see that I'm putting it near my lash line and then looking up. This is just going to act as a kind of guide for me to cut the crease. And again, once you're happy with the shape of your cut crease, pat it. I know there's a lot of repeating the steps in this look, but it really is worth it in the end. So I'm just going to go back in with my 214 Smudger brush and the Liquor shade and just really intensify that cut crease, and then back in with the base just to make sure it's a clean cut. Next I'm using Peaches and Cream Fantasy pigment, and I'm just pressing that all over the base. This is such a pretty pigment. It's like a pink glitter pigment. You guys are going to be so sick of blending by the end of this tutorial. So I'm just going to go back in with my 221 brush and the shade Funky and blend out the corners. We just don't want any harsh lines where we've put that base down. Now we want to intensify that deeper purple on the corners, so we're going in with the 219 brush and the shade Liquor, and again just pressing that on the corners and then blending it through so it's seamless. And then one last blend through with the 221 brush. Next up, we want to highlight under our brow and the inner corner of our eye. So I'm using MAC Cosmetics Vanilla Pigment with the 239 flat eyeshadow brush, and we're really just going to be packing this on. The more the better. And now just buff off any excess with MAC's 224 fluffy brush, and you'll be left with a beautiful gleaming brow highlight. Now for the part that everyone tells me they hate, liquid liner. So I'm going to be using the Tom Ford Eye Defining pen, and I'm going to be using the thicker side. Just for me personally, I really like that side. I find it applies really easily and minimal effort. And then you just want to go back in and blend through the outer corner so there's no harsh line from the liner. For mascara, I'm using the Rimmel London 100% waterproof mascara in the shade Black. I'm just going to pop on some of the Duo White Glue onto my 805 Prima lashes. Next up, I'm going to be priming my skin with MAC Cosmetics Strobe Cream, the original one in Pink Light. And I'm just going to pop that all over my face. It gives the skin a beautiful dewy finish. For foundation, I'm going to be using the MAC Cosmetics Studio Fix Fluid in NW10. It's a little bit light at the minute, but this is just what I've got to hand, so whatever. I've used a little bit of the Fix Plus Coconut on my Real Techniques Beauty Blender, just because my beauty blender was feeling a little bit dry. It will add to the overall finished kind of dewy look, which is really nice when you're using a more matte foundation. Sure just to blend your foundation down your neck, just to avoid any foundation lines. To highlight my face, I'm going to be using MAC Cosmetics Pro Longwear Concealer in shade NW15. It's got a little bit of moisture to it, so it's not going to create lines and dry out the under eyes. It's just going to sit nice and smooth. So as well as highlighting underneath my eyes, I also highlight the centre of my face, so my forehead, my nose, Cupid's bow and my chin. Now it's time to bake and set my face. I use the Chanel powder, it's a translucent powder. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name because it's in French. But what I do is I use my beauty blender and I really pack it on underneath my eyes and I let it sit there for a little while. Then with anything that's left on my sponge, I just dab over the rest of my face. Back to my lashes. Once I've waited for the glue to go sticky, I will apply them. I apply them as close to my lash line as possible, but having black eyeliner, it does give you a little bit of wiggle room if it's not absolutely perfect. And then you just want to go back in with your black liner, go over the lash line in the band just to disguise it. To bronze, I'm using MAC's Mineralized Skin Finish in the shade Medium Tan and the fluffy MAC Cosmetics 135 brush. I'm using this all around the outside of my face, so underneath my cheekbones, onto my forehead, underneath my jawline, just to create that soft contour. Translucent powder's been sat there long enough, so I'm just going to wipe off any excess on my fluffy brush and just buff away the excess powder. To to contour, I'm using NYX Cosmetics Highlight and Contour Pro palette in the shades Toffee, Sculpt and Hollow with a MAC Cosmetics 109 brush just to really chisel out those cheekbones. If you do feel like you've gone a little bit too heavy with the contour like I just did, just go back in with your fluffy brush and just buff it back out. Now if you like a more chiseled contour, just go back in with your translucent powder. I'm just using the same Chanel one with my Real Techniques beauty blender, and I'm just popping that underneath where I put my contour, and when I wipe that away it's going to be really sharp. To highlight, I'm using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sun Dipped Glow Kit, the shade Summer and Moonstone. I'll be applying it with my Zoeva 134 brush, and I'm wetting it before I dip into the palette with my MAC Cosmetics Fix Plus in Coconut. This just makes the highlighter really pop. Dipping back into the palette and going over my chin, Cupid's bow, down the centre of my nose and just above the arch of my eyebrow. I'm using the Zoeva Coral Spectrum Blush Palette in shades CR010 and CR020, and I'm just overlapping the bronzer and the highlighter just so all three blend together. And then just back in with that big fluffy brush just to wipe away any of that excess powder underneath my cheekbones. For my lower lash line, I'm going in with the MAC Cosmetics 214 buffer brush with the shade Liquor from the Carnival palette, and then I'm just going to blend that out with MAC Cosmetics 219 brush and the shade Funky. Want to pop on a little bit of mascara on those lower lashes. Now onto the lips, and I'm using Fenty Beauty Uninvited Stunner Lip Paint. The applicator on this product is such a nice shape, it makes applying your lipstick so much easier. I also slightly overline my lips, that's just personal preference, you don't have to do that. Then I'm going to top that with Fenty Beauty Fenty Glow Gloss Bomb. This is literally the only lip gloss I will wear. It's not a little bit sticky and it just gives that really beautiful sheen without feeling gloopy. And there we have it, the finished look. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've got any other suggestions of videos you'd like me to do, just comment. But yeah, see you later.